Hello, welcome to the 10th week of Storybook Test Bootcamp. This is the penultimate week of the program. So we've covered lots of different types of tests, and now your storybook might contain stories for all those different kinds of tests. And that can be a lot, especially for projects that have like hundreds of components. Also, stories aren't only tests. They can be used for development, they can be used for documentation, and sometimes you need to see stories when you're in like some kind of modes of work, and you don't need to see stories when you're in others. And so just organizing all of that is what we're talking about this week. So I've already published a guide here. And there's just a few techniques built into Storybook and also patterns that we found successful projects use when they're building up their storybooks. So I just kind of walk through that with you now and show you how each of these things look in practice. So the first one doesn't actually have much to do with Storybook. It's just where you place your stories files. And we recommend co-locating those with the component source. So that just means placing them next to. And so a lot of projects, especially on the more simpler side, might just put all of their components in one big directory. And we recommend just putting your stories files directly inside of there. And that's actually what I've done for this demo project I've been walking through this whole time. So all of my components like button and calendar and header, those are all in this components UI directory, source components UI directory in my project here. Or if this gets a little unwieldy or too long, or you just don't like it, we also see a lot of people put each of like a components related files inside of a directory for that component. So like components, button, all the button files, calendar, all the calendar files. Same result, just different ways of organizing it. The second technique is actually how Storybook works automatically, which is this feature we call auto title. So we will title and like organize your Storybook sidebar to match what's in the file system. So let me pull up that demo Storybook to demonstrate this. So I have told Storybook to find stories inside the source directory. And because I've done that, it's going to treat that source directory as kind of the root. And so then any directories inside of that are going to be represented in the sidebar. So here I've got source, components, UI, and then all my stories are inside of that. And so source is the root, so you don't see that, but you do see components, then UI inside of that, and then all of the stories. And we recommend using auto title if it all works for your project, because then there's a one-to-one relationship between what's in Storybook and what's in your file system. And it makes it much easier for people to find what they need, get started using it, etc. However, there are some some tweaks you can do. So if every one of your stories file is always going to be in the same directory, and that's just kind of expected across all your team members, and you don't need to worry about like mirroring this structure exactly. What you can do is in this stories configuration, instead of just giving a glob, you can give an object to specify some things more. So you can give a directory, in this case it's source components UI, and then a files pattern, so star.stories.star. I'm going to save that, and then because it's the main Storybook configuration, I actually have to quit my Storybook process and restart it here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pop over here, and I'm going to, I didn't even need to refresh, but just in case I'm going to. So it's saying it couldn't find a story, and that's because the previous directory structure was kind of encoded in the URL. And so I'm just going to go to the top level of my Storybook, and that'll give me a useful URL again. And so now you'll see that components and the UI kind of like nested structure went away, and now just my stories are top level. I'm just going to leave it like that for the rest of this demo, but just know you do have some options for configuring the auto title. And then if the auto title isn't enough, you can actually supply a title. So let me do that. So in the meta of a stories file, so here I'm in my button, if I give this a title, like sure, example button, and then I'm going to save that once again, it's going to go away. So I'm going to click it here, and now you'll see all my top level things are here, and then I have an example directory that has the button component now. So just a couple patterns for like how things appear in the sidebar. Let's just walk on down this guide. So next would be final thing is tags. So let me show you the power of tags. So tags are used to, well, tag your components, your stories. They can activate functionality, such as like when you put tags autodocs on this, when I put it here on the button stories file, that told it to automatically generate this docs file here. And you can opt into or opt out of tags. So I'm going to show you that right now. So if I have, let's say I have a story, I call it docs only, and its only purpose is documentation. I don't need it as I'm developing. I definitely don't want to test it. I just want to demonstrate something. So to do that, I'm going to remove some default tags. Actually, let me open up those docs real quick. So by default, Storybook will apply the dev and the test tag to every story in your storybook, just for convenience, because those are by default what you want. But sometimes you don't want the default behavior. You want to customize that. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. So with the bang shortcut, that is how you remove a tag. So I'm applying the tags to remove dev and remove test, which is going to prevent it from showing up in the sidebar and then prevent it from being tested. And so if I save this, you'll see that over in the sidebar, it does not appear. However, if I scroll down to the docs, I have this docs only story down here. And if I test, I had 12 tests before, and I still have 12 tests. So that's how you do a docs only story. Very similarly, you can also do a test only story. So let me do this real quick. So I'm going to save this. I have the bang dev, so it's not going to show up in the sidebar. And then I have bang auto docs, and so it did not get added to my automatic documentation here. But there's no bang test, so it still has the test tag, so it's still going to be tested. And in this case, I just made a really simple play function here to make sure that the test fails, just so I can show you. If I do a test run here, so now it's testing 13, not 12. And the failure, because it's a failure, it went ahead and showed me in the sidebar just so I can access it. So if I like filter this down, it's there. So yeah, that's, let's see, there's one more thing with tags, which there's this amazing add-on done by a community member of ours that uses the tag like metadata to display badges in your sidebar. It is very comprehensively documented, and it is quite capable in what it can do. So if that is something that might be helpful, like to display versions or to highlight what is newly available inside of your storybook, this is especially powerful for like a design system storybook. I would encourage you to check this out. But yeah, those are the primary strategies available to you to organize your storybook. And I hope this helps just make using your storybook all the more enjoyable. See you next week.